My name is Amarasri Songcharoen, but everyone knows me as Marci Song. I'm a Thai-American British designer living in London, working on projects around the world, and I am the founding director of Seam Design. My journey into lighting was a bit by accident. After graduating from University of Pennsylvania with my Master of Architecture, I moved up to New York City. I joined a small boutique office that specialized in a lot of nightlife. That would be restaurants and clubs and music venues and things like that. So New York was really my first introduction to a 24-hour city. And it was probably my first exposure to the importance of lighting in design. I took a short stint in corporate architectural interiors, and after a year or two, it didn't seem like a fit. So I decided to take a job over at L'Observatoire International with Hervé Descott, and this shifted my career path from trying to go through down the architecture route to architectural lighting specialty. So most lighting offices, they have a lot of diverse work, especially when we're based in London. We get to work around the world because that's one of our biggest export is our creativity and our talent. And so I think that, but one of the things, I guess it's difficult for me to talk about the body of work that we do, but categorically, because I think maybe what's interesting about our work and the thread that knits everything together is the way in which that we work. So the work of Seam comes from an analytical and research-led design approach. We put a lot of time into analysis and research and desynthesize components of a project with the client and the architect. So this would be analyzing aspects like the participants of a project, their movements, their behaviors in the project, site, climate, culture, and then year-round nocturnal and diurnal cycles. So in this way, no matter how many restaurants we've done or houses or towers, we look at each project individually, and we view each project as an opportunity to innovate. So of course, we're in the business to do our best and most beautiful work, and perhaps most importantly is building collaborative partnerships, to meet shared goals and shared vision of the project, and to design for the people for which the project is to last for years and decades to come. The elevator pitch to lighting is a very tall order, because it's lighting is universal. It touches everyone's lives all the time, if we think about it. So the roots of lighting come from, or lighting design come from theater and also in electrical engineering traditionally, and from theater, lighting has been about being a tool to to progress a story or a narrative, and I think that's where I would begin. Is whoever I'm speaking to, I would say, okay, what's the common ground, and to come up with a narrative to explain what we do. So let's take, for example, I don't know, a plastic surgeon that's doing their offices, their new facilities, and their direct relationship to lighting is like 6,500 Kelvin and 1,000 lux, and in a very sterile environment. So that's their relationship, which is perfectly fine, for their surgical theaters. When it comes to other areas of their facility, we look at the patient areas, how to make them more comfortable with high degrees of privacy. Also, how can the design of their space express to the patient that they are in the best hands, and particularly with plastic surgery, aesthetics being paramount. Color rendering and color temperatures are very important to create that environment, and also direct and indirect lighting sources to be able to render and model the body nicely. But I think above the technology, or above the lighting technology and the architectural design that integrates that technology, is the emotional and the psychological side of it. So that would be, that lighting does promote optimism and healing. So that would be my elevator pitch to a plastic surgeon. I think our next big challenge for lighting is personal curation and control. I think our daily lives, look at me, I'm sitting with all of a few of my devices, I wouldn't say all of them, but I think that our daily lives are shaped by technology and connectivity through our devices, for information, for through social media and productivity. We get our movies and television on demand whenever we want, and we have wearable tech. So I think that technology for lighting and lighting design is available in terms of light sources, controls, and controllability. I think that the biggest challenge is how do we make these complex systems simple for the end user and more approachable, I think. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to lighting, all they want to do is to switch on a light switch. So, what is that middle ground? And I think that's where our next challenge is. Lighting design education, hands down. I think that there are a few programs in the world that offer degrees in lighting-based design curriculum, whether as a standalone program or integrated into an architectural program or urban design, education, city planning, landscape, anything that deals with design of the environment. Our daily lives are 24-hour. Our cities are 24-hour. They're inhibited and interactive throughout the day and the night in some form, and lighting is threaded through those environments. So there's a demand for smarter, better, healthier, and innovative design to address these shifting trends of cities and to address the movements of people. We're all living around the world. I've lived in two different countries, 3 or 4 different cities, and so and we travel around the world for our projects. And so when you land, of course, lighting will affect the way in which we are productive and how we go about our day. And I think, one of your programs is quite difficult to kind of smash everything together, especially with people who come from different backgrounds that are not design. So there's a bit of a different segue, but it just takes a lot of time and thinking about how you impart design skills, knowledge, but that's part of education. And then also this expands to the education of clients and education of architects who don't really consider lighting as part of the, as integral to the design. It's usually an afterthought. So that's, and it's great to be able to continue the 2 or 3 different collaborations with the same designers or the design team, because they get more comfortable with the way that you work, and you can do a lot more exploration and innovation in lighting, and they, they're educated as much as we get educated from them about architectural design. That's hard to say. It's like having many children. You don't want to admit that that you have a favorite, or that one carries the most pride. So that's quite hard to say. In terms of outcome, I think I'm most pleased with our HSBC private banking project with Make Architects. For 2 main reasons. Firstly, the architects gave us a lot of room to explore what we could do with lighting. And secondly, as a result, one could see where the lighting as a material is treated as equally as the other materials in all the spaces, whether it's careful detailing into the floors, the walls, the joinery, the furniture. So, and it's not just the treatment of the ceilings, which is what typically happens in kind of a corporate design, is that, okay, let's do a ceiling. But this was more than that. It was about really pulling the lighting through the architecture. In terms of design challenge, I would say Stone Towers, which was a large development of 18 mid-rise towers in New Cairo, Egypt, with Zaha Hadid Architects. Firstly, it was Seam's first project. Daunting project after launching in 2009, where we were appointed after winning a mini design competition. A lot of sweat and tears. But we had competed against some very established lighting companies in New York and London. It was a huge honor, but also an incredible challenge to meet the high aspirations and expectations of, a very, very complex $1 billion. I think at the time it was $1 billion US project. So after delivering tender documents and for the entire scheme, the project went on hold in 2010, following the financial crisis and Arab Spring. So even though Stone Towers didn't get realized, I'm proud of what our team came up with, especially at the beginning of Seam as a startup. All of us in it together. Maybe one day the project will come back to life, and we'll see another legacy project for Zaha Hadid with our lighting. That would be another proud moment. That's a hard question, because I think I've been quite lucky in my career. But I would say that maybe coming from different cultural backgrounds, living in different countries and in context in my time, maybe I'm not a stranger to being a stranger, if that makes any sense. So I think for me, maybe, I guess, one of the challenges is, navigating through design culture and business culture, as in some countries, a minority female in a leadership role, which is kind of multifaceted. First it was being a Southern female from, and surprise, surprise, I grew up in Mississippi, a small town Mississippi, and operating in the Yankee North. So, after moving up to New York and, with my Southern accent that I had to completely ditch to be taken seriously. Then it was being an American with this face, operating in British culture. Then it was being American British, operating in Thai culture with a familiar face. Then it was, and last but not least, there was being British enough, operating back in Mississippi. So that was the kind of cultural navigation challenge that I had to face. And I'm not a cultural chameleon, but I'm conscious of the situations and the scenarios of, working and adapting in different contexts. And perhaps this is the biggest influence on my design approach, and why research and analysis is very culture-based and very people-based. So I used to pay attention to these differences when I walk into a room, but it's a baggage that I don't bring with me anymore. There are bigger problems to solve on projects through design, a team to train, and a small business to run, and I focus my energies there. I think a woman in design that's been influential in my career, I would probably say Amanda Levy of Future Systems, and now founding director of ALA. Both, they're both award-winning practices, and I first met her on a project when I was a designer at Isometrics. We were working on Central Embassy in Bangkok many years ago, and during that time on the project, I met so many incredibly talented architects on her team, down-to-earth people that work together, and some of them are my closest friends today. She too was down-to-earth and approachable, and I really admired what she was building. And I wanted to develop the same kind of, design and collaborative atmosphere with people who I work with in the future. So when I had launched SEAM, 9 years ago, she was the first person to personally call me to congratulate me, and immediately we started to work together. Her phone call meant a lot. It meant a lot to me back then as a vote of confidence coming from someone who I greatly admired. And our working relationship and collaboration continues to thrive today. So she's one of my champions. And the second person I like to mention is, of course, obviously Hervé Descott from L'Observatoire, who pulled me out of architecture and brought me into lighting design. He's a fantastic, just very, very talented artist, very talented designer. But one of the things that impressed upon me as a young designer at that time was that I was joining a team where his team was full of women. There was probably, of the 10, I think there was 1 or 2, maybe men. But everyone, there was Dusty Helms, Pei Hang Sai, and Nathalie Rizzo. So, they were in leadership roles, and I thought, oh, well, I'm just one of the many people who will become leaders and managers also in the future. Lighting is what makes everything visible. I know that sounds kind of corny, but lighting is what allows people to see, to enjoy spaces, how they feel, work, behave, and how they enjoy the outdoors with natural light, and indoors and at nighttime with artificial lighting. So the challenge of shaping light, its immaterial and transitional properties, and its transformative potential really inspires me about working and designing with light. Well, I guess most women are in support roles traditionally. I would say traditionally, historically and traditionally, women have been in support roles. And it's been a very slow cultural and perception shift to recognize and respect women in leadership roles as equally as men, I would say. Although I don't really feel it so much now. But maybe at the beginning of my career, you can kind of see the cultural shifts and the perception shift. Most women have responsibilities outside of the workplace, which are typically the main caregivers of children and also aging parents, and managing households. This is probably why women are natural mentors and project managers and empathetic designers and complex problem solvers. But that energy is split between professional life and personal life. And to be frank, if a woman doesn't have a supportive network, particularly a partner, that's even more challenging. As far as speaking roles, and I think we touched on this before, is that we're not used to tooting our horn. Maybe that's not what drives us. Maybe it's about the successes of team building, project management, working with people, being collaborative, and that a project is a team effort. It is a collaborative effort. So you don't have the main master designer or the signature designer anymore. It really comes from a team, and it really comes from a huge effort from everyone. Do I have a message for other women in lighting? Don't be shy. I would say, even though I'm like shy. Don't be shy. Show off and be proud of your talents and teams that you work with, just like everyone else. Surround yourself with people who will support what you do. I think that's a big thing. When I was preparing for this, I was watching Rosa Chen's TED Talk. She was one of the design principals at Bolin Jackson, and so her TED Talk was about women in design and equity in design, and how things have been shifting in terms of gender in the architectural profession. And one story that she recalls or that she recounts in her TED Talk, was that this project went through construction documents, and then she had taken maternity leave to have her first child. And then after the birth of her first baby, they went back to go see the opening of the project. And that it was the opening. Steve Jobs is there, lots of the the upper management and lots of press. And he actually was parting, she recalls parting the waves like Moses, coming straight to her and saying, "Rosa, you must come join me at dinner, because we're celebrating tonight. I have one space at the table." And she's like, "Oh, I've got my family here. I have my newborn, and I want to spend time with her." And so I regretfully decline. Okay, well, maybe another time. Blah blah blah. This happened like 3 times. During that one course, that one evening, came back and says, "Okay, I have space for you and your husband, but no kids allowed." She's like, "But my family's here, and I need to bring, I want to spend time with my family. We've come up to see this project, and I'm sorry, I regretfully declined." And she's like walking away, like, "What am I thinking? What am I doing? This is Steve Jobs." And so the 3rd time he comes back and says, "Okay, fine, your family can come, but if she vomits or cries, she's out of here." But she went, and I think that she mentioned Steve Jobs as one of her champions, to someone who actually would invite her to the table, and I think that's what we're talking about. And I would say that I'm very, very conscious that I would not be where I am today without my husband, who is also my business partner, to help grow. We're in this together, and we're going to grow the team together. We're going to grow the company together. And that kind of support, love, and trust and respect is something that you should surround yourself with.